Hello guys and welcome to my build video for a Magicka Sorcerer for the patch 12. Now I've recently released my Magicka Nightblade build. That's top tier in terms of Magicka Nightblade. I haven't lost many fights in that at all, 1vx or xv1. One big criticism on that I keep getting is the amount of stamina it has. It's only got 10k, you can't manage it. That's a joke. You only need a certain amount of recovery. That's more important. If you have enough recovery to sustain your stam pool so it's always full after a CC break, you're fine. So I'm going to point that out real quick. This build has low stam, but it has enough stam recovery to deal with that issue. So don't worry about that. It will be fine on stamina as long as you don't dodge, waste your stamina, etc, etc. This build is really strong. I play this xv1 and 1vx and you name it, dueling the lot. It's very, very strong in terms of the damage output. The stats are really sexy, etc. The big problem it might have for some of you players if you used to running turds and combos is simply that it's different. It's quite hard to run it because it is a pet build. And running a pet build takes a certain play style that's quite hard to get used to. So if you do want to try this build, practice it as much as you can. It's not easy to get used to commanding your pets. I will show you how to do that in a sec. But we're using 5-piece necropotence, the perfect pet set. The perfect pet set is absolute dream. Tons of Magicka. Magicka equals damage and shield size. No reason not to use Magicka. Slap it on. We're then using 3-piece willpower on the jewelry, again to maximize our Magicka. It also gives us that spell damage buff, which is handy. And then on our staff, we're using a Master Inferno staff. You could use Lightning Staff here if you prefer. It's not an issue. I personally prefer the Fire Staff. And on my off bar, I'm also running a Lightning Staff. So there is no Resto Staff in this build. The the Lightning Staff is unsetted just for the enchant, and the Inferno Staff is on our main shield, which is hardened on the front bar. And that gives us extra Magicka. The reduction in cost doesn't matter because we're not using that skill. Finally, the last two pieces on the monster set. You could go to Infernal Guardian. Personally, I've played around and I actually prefer the raw stats of 1 Infernal Guardian, 1 Groff Dart. Again, to maximize the Magicka. The traits on the shoulders are pretty shit, but for the most part, I completely ignore Impen. We are running Infused on the big pieces and Divines on the smalls because we are running huge shields. These shields are so big. If your shields are down, you're a dead man. So don't let your shields drop. If you manage your shield stacking properly, it's extremely effective, but it's, again, a difficult playstyle to get used to using. Enchant-wise, we're running 2 spell damage enchants and 1 stamina recovery, and I'll get onto that recovery in a sec. Our food then, we are running this one here, which is Mother Proton Pro. You would have seen this in my Magicblade build as well. This gives us max Magicka, max health, and then it gives us magic recovery. And we need that recovery to sustain our Magicka because we don't have any glyphs on any gear giving us a recovery. This is enough alone. And I will probably try something similar with this on my Magicka as well. So, onto the stats sheet. These are all unbuffed stats. 49k Magicka. 22k health, that doesn't matter too much, like I said, the shield's there, and 10k stamina. The stamina is really low, but our recovery is 915, and by putting enough points in our CC break points in the champion point tree, we reduce the cost enough for that to be sustainable forever. We're always going to be full stam as long as we don't waste it on anything else. So when we CC break, we might go from 10k down to about 4k, down to about 6k. By the time they can CC again, we're already back on enough stamina. So it's fine on stamina. I promise you, it is enough recovery. If you're running out of stamina, you're blocking or you're dodging way too much. Magic recovery is 1.8k and spell damage 2055 unbuffed. Pretty sexy stuff indeed. We then move on to our skills. So this is where shit just gets super, super weird to play. And you're going to have to get used to this if you want to play a pet build. I'm not saying you have to run this. It's just the build I'm running. That's why it's there. It's to give you guys a different view on the perspective of the game. I personally believe these sort of variety builds can play incredibly well. This build, like I've said, has succeeded everywhere. I've proved it on stream. I've proved it in videos and things. This build is very, very strong. It's just unique playstyles. So if you do need advice, just let me know. But we are running on both bars, both pets, Twilight Matriarch and Volatile Familiar. So this Matriarch will cast me a heal. If I use this synergy here by pressing it again and again and again, each of those is about 2/3 of a breath of life. So the heal is huge. The disadvantage of this pet is it dies very easily. So to protect this pet, we're using Hardened Ward. And Hardened Ward protects our pets. They get the shield as well. We need to watch that carefully. If we do see him lose health, we need to make sure we're shielding him up or healing him up with his own heal after a shield. But to be honest, resummoning is not too bad, and I'll explain that as well in a sec. Our other pet is Volatile Familiar, and this is brilliant damage. People don't realize how strong this is. This does 5k damage every 2 seconds for 4 seconds, as well as an initial hit, by the way. So this does a total of 15k damage for the cast. It's bigger than most dots you're going to see. It's really huge damage. And on the final hit, it CCs him, and that CC is pretty long. It's 3-second CC. It's quite a nasty one. It's very clunky as well, because if you do get them with that, one of the best combos is to cast that familiar, wait for just before the third pulse, pop onto your overload bar. They're going to get CC'd whilst you're on the overload bar. You launch that shit and it's going to be game over. That's a brilliant combo there. But you can also go your generic combo with Crushing Shot, Frags on this bar, and then of course Curse on this bar for another base DPS, high damage, pressure, etc. We're then running Harness as a second shield. Running 2 shields is really important, especially when we're running pets with no heal ward. Without heal ward, without this pet and heal ward instead, you could technically run this no second shield, but I would just suggest going with it. I really think you can run it with just these 2 shields and the pet as long as you practice it. The pets being toggles are also on this bar. You don't get a choice on that. And then finally, our skill is Streak. This is great for mobility. It's a nice damaging skill compared to the other morph. And the other thing you can do with this is if my pet dies. So if my pet dies, I will streak through my opponent. They're going to be CC'd. Whilst I'm in mid-air on the streak, I'm going to cast the pet, and almost 99% of the time, I'm going to get that pet up. If they interrupt, you can just shield stack anyway, so it does not matter if they kill the pet. It's easy enough to recover from that. I'm yet to find a situation where I can't, no matter how good the player is. On the ultimates then, I explained that I'm using Overload. We're using the Energy Overload morph, which also helps our Magicka sustain. If we're running low, we can pop into that, throw a couple of those, and we're good to go. We do have shields on that bar as well, which I'll show you in a sec. And at the same time, that Overload is also insane damage. It's such a huge skill. And if we do manage to get into that, it's an excellent way of hitting them with the pet. Because if we hit them with a pet, like I said, when the pet CC comes on the third pulse, you count those pulses of the synergy. You then drop into the Overload bar just before the pulse, cast the Overload. You're going to get the Overload, the pet, the curse, and the frag in the same tick. They're dead. No chance. On the other bar, we're using an even more brutal ulti, which is Eye of the Lightning. This has a huge tooltip. Unbuffed, 9.4k. Every 1 second for 7 seconds. It's quite similar to Bats in that it's an AoE around you. It does not heal you, so you want to make sure you're careful with your shields. But your biggest aim whilst you're using this is CC the target that it is on. If you can CC the target, they're a dead man. If they can't instantly shield or get out of this, they are fucked. You have to make sure that you can keep them CC, because if they can just walk out of it, it's quite a small area. It's not going to go anywhere. You need to hold them in the area. Follow them around. Don't streak. Just keep the pressure up and use your frag to CC. I mostly see on this bar after cast it. Mostly focus on keeping my ward up there. If I do get a chance, I'll cast a Scamp, because again, that's going to be done in 6 seconds. The ulti is 7. Never know if you can get that pulse in and get a frag off at the end. But most of the time, if you get that ulti off, especially in a 1vx situation, it is a massacre. It's very strong. Yeah, really good skill set. It does proc most of our passives. So onto the Overload bar skills. On the Overload bar, again, we have 2 pets, really important. We're then running Crit Surge. Now this is only there really as a backup heal if your shields drop, but more importantly for you guys who don't want to run potions, there is a space there to run that. It's a nice heal. It gives you major sorcery, etc, etc. It's very handy for that. The other one we're using is for when we're riding, walking around, which is Room Prison. When someone hits me, that is going to CC them, which prevents the meta, so to say, of these burst builds. All of my builds are always designed around countering the meta. This shit alone does it, because if I cast that skill right by there and he ganks me, in fact I could even get this guy to gank me. Let's ask him to hit us so you can see exactly what it does. So I cast this shit. When he pokes me, that will proc instantly a CC on him. There you go. He gets CC'd like that instantly. He can't get a second skill off. So anyone running a meta combo is down. It doesn't matter. Light attack, gap close, the lot, they're CC'd. So that's why that combo works really well. In terms of potions then, I'm using a really peculiar potion setup. We are using this one here, Essence of Immovability, which gives us Magicka, Stealth Detection, and Knockback if we're running the crit. That's a really strong potion. Immunity to CC helps with the Stamina Imagine again, if you're struggling with that. Stealth Detection, great for the Nightblades, that sort of shitty build that you see just hiding around. And Magicka, obviously, to help sustain. The other one you can use if you don't want to run Crit Surge, I personally mostly run this open world, is Major Sorcery, Major Prophecy, and Magicka. Very generic pot. It does work really well. Our Mundus, by the way, is the Atronach just to help with the sustain. Atronach and this food, job done in terms of recovery. You're not going to need anything fancy on that. I can't really think of anything on that. So, onto the champion points, just to finish off. We're running 100 in Magician. Any shield stacking build, you want to stack that up because shields are expensive. Reduce the cost of them. Job done. Recovery, we are running 65 in Magicka Recovery because that does help you sustain again in recovery. And then here we have 22 in Tumbling. Now that is not for the roll dodge cost. We are not going to roll dodge it. It's for the CC break, which is the second part that most people ignore on that. We're trying to manage that so that our base CC cost is below our recovery. That's enough to get it there. So I would greatly suggest getting 22 points in there if you want to run this low. You could always swap a spell damage glyph for stamina recovery. You're still going to have plenty of burst on there because of the Magicka pool. I personally play it like that because I'm quite an aggressive player. In terms of the blue tree, we are running 100 in elemental damage, 65 in spell pen to maximize that, 22 in crit. Don't really need any in healing, it's not that important, and none in any of these, there's no dots. In here, we're running 34 in crit resist. Now, we don't have any impen, but we still get a base gain from this. There may as well be some points in there in case your shields drop. It's a nice way of doing it and still maximizing your recovery and base stats for damage. So if you want to play a higher damaging build, this is a great way to get the resist. Go Divines, Infused, and then run them in here instead. You're not going to have as much, but as a Magicka Sorcerer with enough shield time, uptime, you're going to be good there. Finally, we have 6 in 6 skins for the dot reduction, 25 in Hardy, 22 in Elemental, and 100 in Bastion to increase the shield size. Mix it up as you like, guys, but I'm telling you, I always get roasted for these builds. People are like, oh, that shit doesn't work. If you can't play a non-meta build, don't play a non-meta build. Play a cheese, but you will lose to a good player playing in these builds because these are designed to counter that shit, and that is the shit you're going to see open world. So good luck on it. If you need any advice on how to play this one especially, feel free to ask. One final point that I'm going to go over after I say goodbye is how to do the pets, but I think that's basically everything on terms of the build. So quickly, how to use the pets, because I got this question spammed to me the last time I made one and got dislike bolted. Here we go. We go into our controls. By here, we scroll down, and here is an option called Command Pet. We set a key on that, so for me that's Y. To command them to hit our target, I go Y and left click, and off they go. They hunt him down. To call them back, I go Y and right click, and they come back. You need to learn how to use it in a fight, else you're going to lose your pet. It's really, really effective. It does take practice, but yeah, the stats are great. The damage is great. The burst is great. People are going to say you can't kill without Fury. Wait till you see the scamp damage. It's far more. Get the scamp timing, the curse, the frag, and a crushing shock together. If you need it, the ulti. Job's done. Everyone's dead. I think that covers everything, guys. Appreciate it. And I won't be able to put this on the forum because bollocks, I swear again. Take care, guys, and I'll see you again. Alright, we're good.